Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. I'm here with Miss Dom.
Hi.
I'm Jamie Lou, and today we will be discussing the pros and cons of childcare. I think that for mainly first-time parents, there's a lot to consider when they are about to have their baby, considering their timelines.
Yeah, even like if you're a first-time parent or if you have 3 kids and you were a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case is.
There's a lot to think about when considering childcare and what are the benefits to it versus maybe
The
disadvantages of it, and also at what point at an
Right.
infancy stage, because you have to work at the toddler stage,
Right.
preschool or older. I think we're finding for a lot of young working parents, they want to jump into childcare when their babies are old enough and when they're returning to work. But for those that have the flexibility and luxury of being with their kids, our most demanding age is the toddler room.
Yes. Yeah, and there's some schools that accept children starting at 6 weeks. And a lot of parents, if they don't get a maternity leave, paternity leave, they need it. They need that 6-week mark. And then like you're saying right now, everybody wants to start their kid at 18 months old or at 12 months old at the 1.5, 2 year mark. And that's the most popular care.
When the kids are a little bit older,
Right.
a little bit more self-sufficient, and also really craving that socialization
Right.
from others.
Which I think, just in my opinion, that's where it's a little bit harder to start a child later than earlier, because at infancy, they get used to the surrounding. They get used to not having mom and dad around. They get used to being with other children and being in a new environment. And then at 1, 2, 3 years old, it's a lot harder of a transition because they don't know where they are. They've never been in any type of care other than their home. And so that's kind of where parents need to decide, do we want to do it? Even if I have the means to stay home, is it better for my child to start earlier and maybe I go back to work earlier? Maybe I just take some time off to myself and have a part-time care to make the transition easier. That's where people kind of need to decide.
What do you think are some of the challenges or also the things that parents should anticipate if they are choosing to start their child in a childcare setting?
There's pros and cons to childcare, of course. I think if you're a first-time parent, say you're pregnant, you're a first-time parent, you just need to decide if you want the more one-on-one care or if you want a more group care. There's pros and cons to that, but
I think a lot of things, at least when we give tours, we try to be as transparent as possible,
Right.
and prepare parents for what to anticipate, good and bad, when just doing childcare in general, not even just our program. And one thing we always try to let the parents know is that they will get sick.
Yes.
They will need to build their immunity,
Yes.
especially if you are starting them at a young age, like
Right.
in the infant room. I mean, they're going to be drooling.
Right.
And
But even for your kids when they started,
Yes.
I mean, your kids were almost a year old and 3 years old, and they were sick every week for months.
So for the first year, really, you should just expect that your child will be on and off sick. I tell parents, you're starting childcare for the long haul because you have to work long term. But for your first year, don't expect to work every day.
Right. And and I've noticed, just in my experience, I've noticed that the younger a child starts, the less they get sick, the more their immune system is built up. I mean, we have infants in our infant room who are 3 months old, or they started when they were 3 months old, and now, they're 6 months and they've never gotten sick still. Or maybe they have gotten sick, but they've only missed, 1 day.
Yes.
And then there's children in our, toddler classroom or who are in our preschool classroom who are out every single week.
Yes.
Because they're getting sick. And it's really frustrating for the parents. But unfortunately, it's just the nature of your child building their immune system. And It's really unfortunate that we have to send kids home if we notice symptoms, or we have to ask them to stay out for 24 hours, or, whatever the case may be. And like you're saying, parents have to take off work, or they have to find other means to find care for their kid. But it's just the unfortunate part.
Really challenging when you don't have family around and someone just extra support around you, because then you do have to take off work. And also for parents to know that if your child is sent home, and again, it really comes down to your trust in the teachers and the school. Again, when you're going to childcare, yes, we're considering the needs of your child, but also these are signs of and symptoms of something bigger that can be easily, transferred to other babies and kids. And so at the same time, the teacher is being mindful of the safety of all the other kids of the class.
Right. And the safety of, even the teachers, things like like pink eye, for example. If you catch it quick enough, you can catch it quick enough and you can get antibiotics and you can be back at school the next day sometimes. But that one is just, you can transfer to all the babies. It can transfer to the teachers. It's so contagious. And even though it's frustrating if your child gets sent home with, a little bit of goop in their eye, but then they end up going to the doctor and it is pink eye. And then it's like, oh, well, thank you for catching it so fast.
Yes.
And same with, lots of other different illnesses. But if you catch it fast enough and send home fast enough, then it just saves everybody, the teachers included. And
so that's something for parents to know, is that you are going to learn about a lot of diseases that affect classrooms. And at first,
things you've never even heard of.
Hand, foot, mouth, pink eye. It's just really, really, it can be scary. And so you have to be mindful of that.
And if that's I think something, an important note to add is that our teachers and our, we can clean from top to bottom all day, every day, and it's still going to happen.
Absolutely.
Because it's just, things are airborne. Things are on surfaces, and you can be wiping with a Clorox wipe all day long. You can still get sick. And it's just a matter of building your immune system. And that's the same for teachers too. If a teacher, just graduated high school or college, and their very first day in a classroom setting, they're going to be picking up a million different germs, and they're going to be sick constantly for about a year. That's the same with children, but it's just a matter of your immune system building. And then you look at people like me, who I've been in the field for 8 years and I don't get sick ever. Or like your kids now, who've been in school for a year and now they are, not getting sick at all anymore.
Yes. Or if they do, they bounce back quickly.
Right.
So that's just a reality that if you choose to accept, then it's worth it, and in the long term, it's worth it because you're building something early on that long term, you want them to have that immunity, and that allows you to have the freedom and capability to do more things with your kids. So that's just something to be mindful when you start.
Right. And then going back to kind of what we said prior about the one-on-one care, it kind of goes hand in hand with illnesses. Like you had mentioned that there's other children in the class. Even with a small class size, if you are you're putting your 2-year-old in care, and the state ratio depends on each state, but say there's only 8 children in the classroom with 2 teachers. Yes, that's a low ratio. You have 1 teacher supervising 4 children, but that's still 4 to 8 children that 1 teacher is responsible for, and they're not responsible for just your child. They're responsible for all 8 of them, their safety, their happiness, their just day to day. And either they want just one-on-one nanny and baby, or they want a more teacher to 4 children.
Yes. And at times, knowing that the teacher has to do what's in the best interest of the class, which may not entirely align with what your child needs in that moment. But ultimately, they are okay. They are safe. They are happy. It just may not be exactly what you would have done at home.
Right. And things like, for our younger children, infants and toddlers, who may not nap very well at school because there's 6 other children napping at the same time, and one wakes up and one's talking, and the teacher's trying to, clean, and maybe they're making a little bit of noise. They don't have The classroom's not as dark as at home. There's like little things like that. Maybe your child only naps for an hour at school, but then at home they nap for 2.5 hours on the weekends. Of course, everyone's going to sleep better in their own home, in their own room. And so those are just little things that parents need to understand, that sometimes their child's schedule is going to be a little bit off. They're not going to eat lunch at the same time that they would at home. They're not going to nap
as they do at home.
A lot of the times, parents will say like, oh, they ate this whole plate of pasta for dinner last night, but then they didn't even touch it the next day at school, because kids are just so different at home and at school. And I think that's true for adults too. I mean, you kind of have a different personality in your home life than at your work life.
Absolutely.
So
You'll behave differently in the comfort of your home versus at school, where you have teachers and friends and you're holding your composure and you're regulating your impulses and all that. They're going to operate differently. And so just trusting that at the end of the day, does your child appear happy? Do they still, act like themselves? Yes. Are they still healthy? Are they still, it's about learning, socialization, curriculum, and also.
And that comes with time too. First time parents have a little bit of a harder time accepting those little things than parents with, 3 kids who have been in childcare for a long time, because they're just not used to that. And so it's all about learning. And so if a parent starts their infant at 6 months old, 6 months later, they'll probably be a little bit more understanding that their infant didn't sleep as long than they were in the beginning. Because at first it could be really frustrating. Like, they're on such a tight sleep schedule. A lot of babies who are sleep trained, who, like, if they're sleep trained, they have specific hours and times that they sleep. And if it gets thrown off at school, it can be really frustrating. And, then they don't sleep at night, or then they...
Yeah, it affects the home
weekend.
life.
Yeah, it affects everything. But, and again, it's frustrating at first. Then 6 months down the line, you're like, okay, I kind of understand that a little bit more. And that's also about trusting the teacher, trusting the school. And that goes back to having a good feeling and trusting of the teachers. And
trusting the teachers ultimately, but also if the teachers are communicating effectively. Yes. And so even though it means so much more if the teachers are aware, like, oh, I understand that, Max was supposed to get down at this time, but they were a little fussy, they didn't take their bottle, and so we're still trying, but we're having a hard time. That's going to put a parent at ease, as opposed to not seeing your child go down at all.
Right.
Hours later and not getting any notification. And so it's all about, once, I think, for first-time parents or any new parent joining the program, at first there's a little bit of anxiety and is this going to work? But once you learn to trust the team, then you kind of let go of those things, because they know my child, they love my child, and they're going to do what my child needs, even if it's not exactly what I would do at
and
home.
At the end of the day, if it's something that a parent can't move past, or just wants more individualized care, then childcare may not be for them, and that's totally fine. It's not for everybody. And so those are things that maybe you start in a childcare center, and then 6-7 months later, you're like, you know what, this isn't what I want. This isn't, working for our family. This isn't, the child isn't sleeping at home, things like that. Like if it's just not working, then maybe that's when it's time to have a nanny or have a babysitter, stay home, things like that.
And as the kids get older, it opens up a world. I think when they are younger, infancy to toddlers, it's really a lot about care and trust and mimicking home life as much as they can at school, so that they have that consistency and security. And as they get older, then it's really about influences.
Yes, that's when the behaviors start.
Yes, behaviors that they learn from peers, good and bad. Good things they learn from their teachers that you see at home, which is amazing, but they're going to be exposed to a lot of different behaviors and language, and which is all great, but at the same time, it's up to the teachers to really ensure that the environment is safe for their kids. Manage those little things, be aware and manage them, communicate with the parents, and that in turn, that's your job as parents at home. Like, Yes, I know Johnny said that, but
Yeah. And that's things like you're saying when they get a little bit older, in like the preschool, pre-K classrooms when they're 3, 4 years old. That's when they're starting, their language skills are just developing so fast. Maybe they're starting to say things or pick up on different things, or they're starting to kind of act a different way.
become oppositional.
Yes. And then that's when you start to hear teachers saying, like, your child had a great day. However, this happened and it's because they were playing with this child. And it's just because there's so many different personalities in the classroom. I mean, you have 23-year-olds and so there's 20 different personalities. There's some children who are more talkative and social, and there's some who are a little bit more quiet into themselves. And it's just things that your child will pick up on.
And so it's up to the parents to decide too, and to be mindful of, again, yes, they're going to experience these things as they get older and go to, kindergarten, first grade and on, and that they're just going to be thrown into this, world and learn those things. Do you want to start that journey at a younger age where they're going to be exposed to different people and personalities, learn things that may not necessarily align with your values, but do you as a parent want to start having those conversations with them at a young age of, this is our expectation of you, even if a friend does this?
Yes.
Those are hard conversations.
Which is something that I think you can speak a lot to, because, your child is 4 years old. And so you can start having those conversations with her about how, like you're saying, like this child may have said this, but that's not what we believe or what we think. And so instead of saying that, say this. And that's where, raising your child comes in.
Absolutely. So it is like the teachers can do so much, within a given day, but that communication and that follow through has to happen at home. And so in a perfect world, what teachers and educators and childcare providers envision is that they do all they can in a day, but they want to partner with you parents and be a resource, but also, be a partner so that you can carry through that same message at home, whatever that may be.